I am Kavita Bahal.
And I am Kizelle Jackson.
And welcome to the Live Wire. So Kizelle, what's happening in the Caribbean region?
Oh, good news. Jamaican Prime Minister Andrew Holness finally ends months of speculation as he announced September 3rd, 2020 as general elections. Jamaicans go to the poll. What happened? Mr. Holness and his governing JLP, Jamaican Labour Party, goes up against opposition Dr. Peter Phillips of the People's National Party. I almost say the People's National Movement. So, Kavita, what is happening in Trinidad? I know elections, it is over. So what is the postmortem?
The People's National Movement, Prime Minister Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley won by 22 seats to form the second 5-year majority government, defeating the United National Congress, led by our Honorable Mrs. Kamla Persad-Bissessar. Of course, Kizelle, certain factors surfaced after the general elections, as you can tell. Number one, it was alleged that poll cards were discarded. Secondly, there was a spike in racism on social media and so on. And of course, the big question that national observers were absent from this general elections.
Kavita, I have a real problem. Yes, there are a lot of racist and racial talk after election. But Trinidad and Tobago, we are a multi-ethnic society. I think it's about time for us to rise above this issue of race that politicians sometimes use to divide a populace.
Yes.
And I mean, this is nasty politicking, politicizing. And the people of Trinidad and Tobago ought to know that we share commonality. We share a common country. I mean, this is a time when we're supposed to be focused on economic development and growth rather than issues of skin color and hair type. Yes? We can't omit the role of social media because there I was watching social media and it was so distasteful and disgusting. And then people calling another entity a cockroach. And then on the other side, the racial slurs that came after was very degrading. However, moving forward, is there a limit to social media in that we saw pornography and pornographic images of that particular young lady? But what I am saying, she's not right for what she said. However, these pornographic videos that persons would have had in private, what gives social media the right to distribute these things? And who puts an end to this? Because tomorrow, and you never know, it could be you, it could be I. So again, it could be your wife, it could be your mother, it could be your daughter, it could be your son. Now, we ought to put a stop and stop sharing these videos. And it is distasteful, and please, if you all find pornographic images, I am against porn, don't send it to me.
You know, because that's strange enough, you know, if you cut us, we bleed. Don't we have one blood, one color? And you know what people need to understand too is that why is race or racism being such a huge factor now? When it's really the people, feelings, because we were divided by racism, we were divided by politics, we were divided by religion. But the main issue right now is that we are in a global pandemic where our focus should be placed now on survival, not really cutting down the branches or cutting persons up. And you know, Shakespeare used to say, or in a quote where he said, if you cut us, we bleed. If you tickle us, we laugh. We are humans, and there is only one race, the human race.
And Kavita, with all the mudslinging that we saw happening during and even after the election,
a politician really thinks about the next election, but a true statesman thinks about the next generation. And if only parties can pull together, merge together, we will get more things being done. More progress in society, more progress again amongst members of society, and race too will eventually, or that pull and tug of race and the division will eventually come to an end. Because once people can pull together, more work actually gets done. It's what you call teamwork.
So you're talking about a utopia that may never happen. However, we ought to know that a divided house will fall.
Yes.
And we are asking for, there needs to be some form of political reform. Kavita, I think you're talking about a utopia, which may never happen. However, as a people, we ought to understand that divided, our house will fall. But there's a need for some form of political reform in that put an end to dirty politicking. put an end to this childishness that we see in this kindergarten. If I lose, I'm not playing again, and if you win, I can't play with you. Put an end to dividing a populace. Yes, we understand that you're trying to win an election. Yes, we understand that you're trying to move voters, but move voters on integrity. Kavita, we see a lot of political leaders stepping down. So my question now, is this the end of the Ms. Kamala Persad-Bissessar reign in terms of the leader of the United National Congress? And we are still to hear from her. As well as we understand that the leader of the PEP, Mr. Philip Alexander, also stepped down as the political leader of that party. And these politicians now stepping down and giving room for other politicians to come to the fore.
Change is something that's inevitable, but it's also beautiful when you embrace it.
And we're with Mr. Philip Alexander, the former political leader of the Progressive Empowerment Party. And Philip, the election is over. What are your thoughts about this last general election that passed us here?
Well, I've been saying to a lot of people who ask me this question, and I want to say this here, that our systems of governance in Trinidad and Tobago don't work. And we, the people, we accept that we need systems of governance, and we give a kind of confidence that if it has a name and it has a title, it must work. But it does. Nothing works in Trinidad and Tobago. None of our systems of government. And our election was a clear example of nothing working in Trinidad and Tobago. We have a lot of situations in this election that have to be addressed. Irregularities, the sudden influx of declarations for people without ID cards, and none of it adds up. The entire election was conducted in a very ad hoc manner. The rules that govern the election, the chief election officer, she admitted that there are no real laws or rules. The Elections and Boundaries Commission says that while there is campaign finance law, it's a joke because the party could spend $100 billion even though the candidates are limited to 50,000. Nothing is really set up to work properly in Trinidad and Tobago so that you can corrupt it and get whatever outcome you want if you have power.
There were several ballots, it was alleged, were discarded. What are your views on that?
People are looking for anything. The entire country, even those who support the party that won, many of them know that people have been paid to vote. I mean, the system is corrupted. And the country has not settled with this election. Nobody is walking around feeling like election is behind us. Let's go forward to deal with the problems that are affecting the country.
Now, that's what I'm going to ask you. Do you think that politicians are responsible or should be held responsible for the political divide that we are seeing?
Absolutely.
The racial divide
Absolutely.
now in this country?
Absolutely. All of our racism is political racism. Trinidadians are not racist people. Trinidadians live like one people under one flag. David Rudder said years ago, how we vote is not how we party. And I said to Trinidad, that wasn't a compliment, that was an insult.
And the composition of our national anthem, every creed and race shall find an equal place.
I think it should say is supposed to find an equal place because we don't, and it doesn't happen. And if you have two political parties that do not campaign on issues and policies and plans to steer the country forward, if what you're campaigning on is the racial makeup of your supporters, we fail before we start.
So do you think that this country has enough political education to understand the difference between old talk and a proper manifesto? Do you think that the general citizenry of Trinidad and Tobago look at the manifesto and look at performance and not vote on the basis of race and partisan?
Well, let me tell you, we've brought out so many strong policies, and over the course of 4 years, about 1,500 live videos, we've educated and empowered, we've informed the people. The people understand that, and they hear me speak, but then they have to say, but he's not black like me, or he's not Indian like me, so I can't vote for him. He's right, but I can't vote for him. And when I hear people say things like that, is what makes me think that until we get to a point where the PNM and the UNC fall on their swords, because they're going to, at some point, you cannot mismanage a country this badly. Trinidad and Tobago has been enduring the longest recession in the Western world over the last 5 years. We are in a terrible position without COVID-19. Prior to COVID-19, the economy was already broken. COVID-19 just sealed our fate. And the average person that just taking sound bites from their party because because of rabid politicking, because I think that's the problem, you know. We've broken our people racially, so now they have to, even if they don't agree, even if you're black and don't, or African and Afro-Trini, and you don't agree with the PNM, because you can't agree with the UNC, you're gonna stay silent. And the same thing happens on the UNC side. And that prevents us from maturing and understanding a manifesto.
This is what I asked you last time around. Remember last time around I tell you a third party something is chewed up and spit out and you tell me you're not beef. So you're looking like it's beef now.
No, but it's not.
But are we ready? Because the people are more concerned about entertainment, it looks like.
But if the election was stolen, if the election was stolen, I believe that the numbers that we were told by the ABC is a lie. I believe that we got thousands more votes. I believe that we actually did a lot better than they're saying that we did. And all the things that were done to throw us off balance and to keep us disadvantaged, we overcame as best as we could all of those things. So no, I don't trust the ABC. I don't trust these results. I don't think we did as badly as we did. I think that those who were responsible for bribing and paying voters should be charged and jailed. I think that there should be an inquiry into the entire election. There should be a nullification. We need to declare a fresh election 6 months from now so that international observers could be here from the start of the process to monitor the process. Now that Trinidadians have seen the consequence of this race voting now, and they're feeling it, you could see that they feel a sense of responsibility. Did we make a mistake? Like how Britain went through Brexit. The next morning, everybody was like, did we think this through? And I feel that in Trinidad and Tobago, people just calling me and saying, boy, Philip, I'm sorry, boy, I wish if we had only known, and it's only 7 days past. So what happens in the next couple of weeks, in the next couple of months? What happens if we tolerate and allow this farce to continue? What happens when that budget is read and people realize that this government and the other party that wants to form government are both functional tools of a contract mafia that wants to control Trinidad's treasury, that it wants our people as laborers and consumers and nothing else. We're not growing, we're not maturing, we're stuck and we're going backwards. When we talk about issues like Petrotrin, what happened with Petrotrin? The chairman on Petrotrin on the one hand says Petrotrin has turned the corner, it made a profit. 3 months later, the Minister of Energy said, Petrotrin is a drain on the economy, we shut Trinidad down, we close it down, turn off Petrotrin. And they didn't consult the public, they don't consult the public. So Trinidadians are like lemmings, we're like drones, we're like worker bees. You just do what you want and tell us what we gotta do. And it can't continue that way because at some point, we are going to run out of the ability to pay the bills. And that is a frightening day to come.
And Mr. Alexander, you know, often we hear about division, politically, religiously, socially, racially, and so on. But amidst all of this, we are faced with this pandemic. Right now, the second wave, again, we discussed it last interview, it is here. And so many people are affected now. Businesses are affected, schools are closed. I mean, we can always recover a child academically, but health-wise, we have to pay attention to it. Do you believe that with leaders coming together or getting that force so strong that there is a possibility of finding some sort of solution to this pandemic?
You asked so many questions in that question. The first thing I want to tell is, find for me one example of racial discord in this country outside of politics, and you can't find one. You can't find one. You get a bad drive, and you will cuss somebody with a racial slur. But they'll cuss you back with your racial slur. Everybody feel, everything done, we go on we way.
But is that okay?
No, I'm not saying that it is okay. I'm just saying that when you have disenfranchised and disempowered people, that's how they're going to respond. People don't feel like if you bad drive them, then they take your number and call the police will take action. They believe that the police officer taking the call and say, that's what you're calling me for. And we accept that this is who we are. So we disenfranchise, we disempowered, and we want to respond and manage our own business, blunt force, immovable object, every single time. But we're not naturally racial people. The president should be fired. The CMO should be fired. I wrote Her Excellency before the election. I told her the numbers are suggesting when we got the 7 cases and then we got the 10 cases. I said, Madam President, look at the writing is on the wall. Campaigning our failure to close the borders when there is so much COVID-19 coming from South America that's being decimated. Venezuela has very little public health now because the country broken. So they're trying to come to Trinidad for the rescue. And our failure to secure our nation's borders, the failure of the Coast Guard, the failure of the Ministry of National Security, and everybody will say, not me, them, not me, them. But it's the collective we that failing. And that starts at the top with the leadership. So people just ask me, but it's not Rowley put the gun in their hand. No, he didn't put the gun in their hand. Kamla didn't put the gun in their hand. But Kamla and Rowley failed to secure the nation's borders. They failed to clean up the police service. They failed to put incentive to end crime. They failed to create a social development master plan that gave everybody hope and opportunity. So nobody wants to be walking around with a gun in their hand to wrong other people because nobody wants that as their first choice for life. They settle for that. And again, it's a lack of leadership. And when the president refused to act, and she had the power under Section 34 of the Representation of the People's Act, and she refused to act, she put people in danger. When the chief medical officer was talking nonsense in press conferences about clusters, and then 2 days after the election, 21 days from my letter, and I counted it out for them. So that is the exact incubation that led to your spike. So you as CMO were given a heads up, and you didn't act on it, you should be fired immediately. You should have the decency to resign. This spike and everything that's going to flow from it and all of the decimation of the business community, the economy, all the debts, everything that's going to happen has to be laid squarely at the feet of Keith Rowley, Paula Mae Weeks, and the CMO, because all three of them had the ability to act. But the Prime Minister then, who is the Prime Minister now, knew that he couldn't read a budget and then have an election. The next budget that's going to be read, the reason Keith Rowley on August 10th, his first words were prepare for difficult times, he is signaling to his base.
Next 2 years.
He is signaling to his base. This budget is going to make them hate him. And if he had read that budget before the elections, he couldn't win a bingo in this country. But it is the government that is responsible for the economy. Whatever COVID-19 did, that is what the Heritage and Stabilization Fund was for. We had enough money in that fund to be able to manage the country and keep people on a path where we had beaten it. We had gotten to a place where we had no new cases, and I told them, keep the airports closed, keep the borders closed, and open Trinidad internally. Start to bring back our people in batches. Bring them, we have 1,000 rooms, bring 1,000 at a time. So we have 10,000 people, we need 10, 14-day windows. Bring them all back, quarantine them, no self-quarantine nonsense. I keep hearing this foolishness. I'm gonna tell you, you're gonna come back into the country, you might or might not have COVID, but I'm gonna trust you to go home and live with your family, and I will believe that you will stay in your bedroom and they'll put your dinner under the door for you. I don't believe that nonsense. If you're coming home, quarantine them. Don't tell me the foolishness about them having to pay for their quarantine. They're taxpayers in the country. The money that you're going to spend is their money that you're spending. Bring them back, quarantine them, let them go if they have no COVID-19. And that was the way we were supposed to manage it. 6 months down the road, we could still do that. We could get a handle on COVID-19 right now. And again, we're just sitting back and taking body blow after body blow. We're making foolish decisions in the name of managing. So it's government by VAP's policy on the hoof. This happened today, do that tomorrow.
So many small businesses as well. You know, they are closing down. Lessons institutions.
If COVID-19 can be spread on a beach, if COVID-19 can be spread on a beach, you don't tell people on Friday that you're closing down the beach on Monday, so that they pack themselves out on the beach for the weekend.
That was ridiculous.
That is beyond stupid.
That is ridiculous.
It is inane. And I'm saying that if the government and the CMO doesn't see how none of their statements add up, line up, it doesn't make sense.
Because on social media, because yesterday, an influx, people lying, drinking, everything.
But again, we should hold people accountable for their
behavior.
Well,
And no masks.
How do you do that? How do you hold people accountable if the government and the public health, through the CMO, telegraphs to people, wink, wink, it's not that bad? Because that's what they did. If they tell you, I'm going to close the beach on Monday, knowing that Sunday is the beach day in Trinidad, what I tell you? That's wink, wink. Go ahead, take your last dip.
What are your views on CPL occurring at this point in time?
It was stupid. Them talking bubbles, Kamla talking domes. The country needs clear, sober, sensible leadership.
Do you think that because of this passion that you have, sometimes it could lead to a level of frustration? because you have a different level of thinking, you're very innovative. But sometimes, even on the social media, you can come out disrespectful or lewd, or sometimes even using obscene language when you're angry. Is that the kind of leadership that you want to promote as well?
It's not angry, you know. I'm actually trying to speak. There's something called shock doctrine. And shock doctrine is the government telling you, send the Prime Minister on the TV to say that WASA is not working, but we have a white knight in this company or that company that's going to come along and they're going to take it over and they're going to fix it. Shock doctrine is what has all of our people subdued. So you see the conditions of the roads and you know you're paying your road tax with the gas, but nothing is being done, and you're mashing up your shocks and they're telling you about make sure your car roadworthy, but the road not car worthy, and you're vexed and you want somebody to say it for you. I say it for them. Because my voice is not meant to trickle down. My voice is meant to reach you. And I keep saying, the day everybody in this country stop shoo-shooing to one another and start talking outside, I could go silent, because everybody feels what I feel, you know. People they're not brave, they're not courageous. And I'm trying to show them, I want to shake the cage. I want them to see that you have a right to speak. Nobody could stop you from speaking, that the parliament belongs to you, that the Prime Minister is your employee, your servant. His job is the quality of your life. Shake the cage. I said if we had won the election, I wanted 100,000 people to come in town, and we're going to convene the parliament, and we're not coming out until recall is law, so that you could fire us if we don't deliver, and fire every other government. We can't fire the government. If you're in a bingo club, you could fire the head of the bingo club, because if you're not performing. But in Trinidad, you hire a government and you have to wait for 5 years. You could burn tires and dance for the water cannons, but the law doesn't allow you to fire them.
You know, on social media with the incident that occurred, so many people are fired up about this racism. I mean, it's a bad thing that occurred. But do you think that with the people coming together to have a strike or some sort of say, that change would occur? The same amount of energy that they are putting into...
First of all, you cannot take that position against Ramsaran and give Krokro a pass. You can't call one racism and the other one culture. When Krokro come and wind up his body on stage, call it culture and saying, black man, all you look for that, and you listen to the call, the whistle that coming out of that is divisive, and we're sponsoring that with public funds. This Ramsaran girl, she obviously have a lot of hurt and a lot of pains, but I'm telling you this, that was an overreaction for a distraction, because as nonsense as she spoke, there are business owners in this country, massively wealthy people, who have said worse things and then come out and give you a little apology and everybody happy. Massey and the head of the Supermarkets Association overreacted for their agenda. And I asked David Alfonso, who is the head of Massey Stores, I said, have you been appointed Facebook police? Because if you take action against the Ramsaran family, who have nothing to do with this girl, and if you say something on Facebook, they shouldn't punish your mother, your father, your sister, your brother, your husband. It's you. You ought to deal with that. And I said to Massey Stores, you didn't deal with the person who made the statement. You dealt with relatives of the person who made the statement. And that was itself wrong.
With the people's voice, right?
I just said that Massey and the Supermarket Association now need to apologize to Ramsaran Dairy Company. They need to compensate them for their losses. Or they need to put up billboards in their stores saying racist of the day. And post everybody's name and everybody's picture. And I'll sponsor it for them. I'll give them the first recording from Krokro. And I'm saying, and I'm not just trying to highlight Krokro, but our culture has been hijacked to divide. The only other time besides politics that you hear people attacking each other on the most obscene and racial ways is Calypso Monarch.
But the voice of the people can make a change, don't you think?
That question that you asked, yes. And again, that's why I talk the way I talk, because I want to wake them up.
This is Mr. Alexander coming back, right? I say what is good for one is good for all. We have Mr. Alwari's children was in some level of disrepute. We have Stuart Young's stepdaughter that was in some level of disrepute. So then we should hold all parents accountable. Then, with the aspect of racialism, you said that maybe we are not a racial society, but maybe we are a racial society. That things are being swept under the carpet because what comes out of a man is what is inside of a man.
You see, people could say that. I grew up in Woodbrook on O'Connor Street. And I grew up in a community where literally white, black, Indian, Chinese, Syrian, everybody was that straight. If the people of the country, Afro-Trinbagonians, Indo-Trinbagonians, saw each other as family, one people under one flag, always Trini, because with Trini, you have no roots nowhere else. And then they pick you up and they drop you in India, they pick you up and they drop you in Africa, you're lost. But in Trinidad, you know how to flag down a taxi to go and get your doubles and go and get your shack and bake or wherever. Paul now, who's a very good friend of mine, is using comparison of curry versus stew. I like that. We live in a cohesive, multi-ethnic, plural, diverse quilt of a country that we should be enjoying. But we don't, because politicians have to lie. Politicians cannot defend their track record. This election, the PNM should have defended its track record. And the UNC should have defended 2010 to 2015. We've never had that. We've never had, I called for debate. I said, let's debate. Because the things we're standing for, and I'm asking you, where is the rainwater going? Tell us. You are the government, 58 years of washing the rainwater to the sea. Tell the people of Trinidad and Tobago why. Is it that you are too incompetent to capture whole treat and distribute? Or is it that you are part and parcel of the corruption? You get kickback to allow companies to set up, to desalinate, and spend $500 million a year. That $500 million a year that we spend desalinating water could build 500 homes a year. 500 homes. In quick time, in the 20 years we've had a desal code, we would have taken care of the entire HDC list. And that's just one example. We live in a country where we have prestige schools and failed schools, but the same curriculum, the same funding, the same Ministry of Education, the same teacher pool. So how is that possible? How is it possible? And then people, when you press the point, they start to get little racist and they start to get little classist because, and if you look at the Finland model, which is by far and away the best performing education system in the world, they don't separate the children by class, by race, by size, by nothing. That all work together and they carry each other along. And that's a perfect metaphor for the country. We should all work together and carry each other along. But we don't. I went and I did a video in Fairways. Because my family lives in Fairways. And I walked with the camera. And I'm just saying to the people who are fighting, and it went a long way in ending the fight, the whole race talk on Facebook, because that video got about 100,000 views. And I named the video, Unite and Prosper, Stay Divided and Suffer. And I said, look, Black Trinbagonians, Afro-Trinbagonians, and Indo-Trinbagonians, you all spend about $10 to $20 billion a month in this economy. That's your combined value. You could buy Clico every month. You could buy Massey every month. You could buy Macal every month with your spend. But you prefer to be fighting each other over nonsense and not thinking through that if you had a consensus of what you wanted as leadership, where you want the country to go. And it's not too much to ask for. It's not too much to say, make public health work, make education work, make it possible for the average person to get a job, and if you have a job, to own a home. It is impossible for the average person to own a home in Trinidad and Tobago. And that is insane. If you cannot get to the place where you can own a home, then you can't have a proper management of your family. And the family, all the science tells us, all the negatives in society are defeated if you have strong family units. And strong family units, in countries where there is high percentage of home ownership, strong family units, no crime, no drug addiction, no murder, no drug. I mean, come on. We have all of the information at the leadership level. And what the leaders are doing is misleading people and talking to them about race and religion. And that, I think, has been the greatest crime that's been committed in this country against the people of Trinidad and Tobago.
Thank you, Mr. Alex.